Hello everyone, quick standard sound check. Please let me know in the live chat if you can hear this and you can see me. That way I know everything's working okay. And I will see you at 7:30. Bye for now. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first of these midweek shows, the feedback shows. We have a small but select group here, according to my stats. We've got 6 concurrent viewers, or is that 5, depending on which display, I believe. So I'm sure I've seen more people than that in the chat. So if you're watching, hello, welcome, and hopefully 1 or 2 other people will join. Oh, 7 concurrent viewers now. Hopefully a few more people will join us as we get underway. So a little bit different the Wednesday nights to our regular Sunday nights because the emphasis is on your images. So let's get started with the standard housekeeping that I'm afraid needs to happen each time. First of all, to say, if you are new to the live stream, welcome. You are very, very welcome here, and it's great to have you on board. Do take a moment just to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you get to hear about new videos which are being posted. And I am posting new videos to the channel a couple of times a week at the moment, as well as doing the live streams. So do hit the subscribe, do hit the bell icon. If you're watching this on replay, it'd be really great if you could just pop a comment in the comments below so that I know that you're here and that you are watching it, because I need to assess how these Wednesday nights go as to whether we can keep on doing them. That all depends on having people watching, to be perfectly honest, on there. And hit the like button, please. That helps raise my profile on YouTube. As my profile gets raised, that means I can provide more and better content to help you all with your photography. And if you have the ability to share the links, I know a few of you have done, especially for tonight, with it being the first time on the with the feedback show. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much on there. I just want to take a pause at this point because something has happened which has made me realize something. We need an index. I've now twice been asked questions to which I am sure I've already answered, but I can't find it in the past live streams because there's so much content out there. We're on week 44, live stream number 45. So basically what we need is an index, particularly of the Sunday nights and maybe of the Wednesday nights as well. And it's basically just someone to, when we are live, just to have a pen and paper to hand and note down the things that are being discussed, which might be a topic in its own right. So for example, if I went off on a tangent and started doing a section on, I don't know, skin softening, because one of the images was on that, then maybe that's something worth noting down because we might want to go back to it. Or maybe it was a session where I showed a technique using Snapseed. And that was the question that came in today. I was asked, have I covered Snapseed? And the answer is yes, I have, but I'm blowed if I can work out which of the live streams it was. So if you feel this is something you might be able to do for the future live streams, drop me a message and I'll explain what's needed. It's not arduous, you just need to watch the live stream and make a note and then send it to me. That's all that I need on there. I mean, ideally, a couple of volunteers to go and look at some of the past live streams and tell me what's actually in them would be helpful, but not essential. And that would be something I'd divvy up and spread out over time. So it's not too onerous on anyone. But anyway, if you think you can help with that, do let me know. Anyway, about the shows. So these are twice weekly shows. We have a Sunday night tutorial and Q&A session, and that's the focus of it. I pick a different topic each week and we look at that and I answer your questions as and when they come in. Wednesday is feedback focused, I do have a couple of points where I'm checking the live feed, and if there are questions that come in that I can answer there and then, I will do so. But any more complex questions will get deferred to a Sunday night with the Wednesday night shows. So, as ever, they are going to stay on YouTube. I think the Wednesday ones will probably stay in full length and not bother cutting them down. At least that's my thinking at the moment. The Sunday night ones get cut down and put into the Academy eventually. But I am in the process of putting the extracts here on YouTube as well. And you may have noticed some of those appearing recently. If you find the Sunday nights or the Wednesday nights particularly useful and you want to financially contribute, I've got this option of Buy Me a Tea. I don't drink coffee. It is actually run by the people who do Buy Me a Coffee, but my link is buymeatea.com. /Ian Butty. It's on the screen now. There's a link down below as well, and you can buy me a cuppa. And I just want to say thanks to Tim Waters for tonight's cuppa. Cheers, Tim. Much appreciated. The Facebook group that's associated with this, that's the link there. If you're watching this and you don't know about the Facebook group, do come and join us on there. It's where we continue the conversation during the week. It's where a lot of the photos we're looking at tonight have come from. So that's where one of the places where you can post images for me to look at. And we've also got various challenges going on in there, including a bingo challenge, which we'll look at some of the images for that tonight. I have a newsletter, again linked down below, and it was on the screen very briefly. What have we got on the show tonight? Well, it's a feedback show. I'm giving priority on all the feedback shows to images which are sent directly to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk. Things that get sent there are almost certainly guaranteed to have feedback on, because I've got more information to go on. I've got better quality images, etc., etc. So if you want to guarantee having an image talked about on the show, send it to that address. The cut-off time typically is about midday on the day of the show. Sometimes I manage to squeeze one or two more images in beyond there. So tonight we're going to look at people's best images from 2020. And included in that is Peter Saltiel's top 10 that he sent me. So we've got a special presentation of those later. We're going to look at the other theme that's going on at the moment, which is snow and snowscapes. And I'll be talking about that on Sunday, but some of the images have already been posted, so I might as well do the feedback on those tonight. I will then look at some of the bingo challenge images, and then finally any other random Facebook posted images. So that's the order of priority on it. I've worked out there's over 70 images in my my Lightroom folder. So some of them I'm just going to have to skip through and go through very, very quickly. Others I'll spend a little bit more time on as we go through. I've also got, in the middle of this, I'm going to have a little break for me to just have a drink. I'm going to premiere a Lightroom 2-minute tip that isn't going live until Tuesday next week, so you get a sneak preview of it on the show tonight. And of course I'll keep checking for live Q&A, but I suspect most of those will get answered on Sunday. I'm not going to cover any of the questions which were asked on Sunday, by the way, tonight. So any questions, stick them in the chat, or if you're on the replay, put them in the comments on there, or you can even email me to contact me at ians-studio.co.uk. Right, top 10 images, or your top images from 2020. On Sunday, I talked about how I refined and went through finding my top 10 images from the year. And if you want to know how I did that and what they all are, go and have a look at Sunday's show on the thing. That's the 10 images that I've selected. But I also issued a challenge to a few people to try and find their top 10. And so far, only one person's taken me up on that, and that's Peter Saltiel, and he sent me the images during the week, and some great images amongst there. So what I've done is I've put them together as a little slideshow. So let's have a look at the slideshow, and then I'll look at them in Lightroom and give a bit of feedback on them. Okay, so that was Peter's top 10 images, and as you can see, I've now got them here, well, over my shoulder, in Lightroom. And I think it was a lovely selection on there, and I hope, Peter, you found the process of going through all those useful in terms of narrowing down your images and working out what worked on the air. There's a couple I want to just talk about a little bit. A lot of them we've actually covered during the year, so I'm not going to talk about those, but I want to just talk about this one of the butterfly, which I think is a fantastic shot on there. Let's just have a look at the shooting data on it. Yeah, it's f6.3, 640th of a second. Right. One little thing on this, Peter, is macro photography is notorious for shallow depth of field. So when you look through your lens and you can see that you're 120 millimeter, which hopefully this will tell me on here. Yeah, you're full frame on your camera, so you actually only need to be at 120th of a second to hand hold. So you've got shutter speed in hand here. What I would do is I would use that to give myself a couple more stops of on the aperture to give that wider depth of field. So let's do the maths on this. So 640th of a second, one stop down, 320, two stops down, 160th of a second. So you can go two stops down on the shutter speed, which would take you up to about f11, if I've got my maths right on there, which would give you just a bit more depth of field on this shot. And the reason I say that is when we zoom in on here, we can see this bit of the wing is lovely and sharp, but we're losing the eye just out of the depth of field, and we're losing the tips of the wings just out of that depth of field. So if you just got a couple of extra stops worth of depth of field, that would have just helped that image much more. But that's a nitpick. It's a lovely capture. It's well framed. I do like it. And again, I tend to do this a fair bit, but just a little bit of brightening on there. Going back to the others, this one I want to just mention, which is your two cows one. Now, with this image, a couple of things I would do with it. I don't think the grass at the bottom is adding much, so I would be tempted to just bring that down. I'm just going to change my overlay on there. That's the O key to there. So it's they're definitely on the 1/3 line there. So I would go with something like that in there. The other thing I would do with it is I'd bring the vibrance up, make this a little bit more saturated. Now, those of you who know about my presets on here, I would also try and bring out a bit more detail in the sky. So I think I could boost the sky like that. Might need to just bring the shadows up a bit on those cows. That's looking better. Maybe just a touch on the exposure with it. So I would be going with something like that, just to bring a bit more. So before and after, that's before, that's after. It doesn't do the cropping on there. So those are my suggestions for that. But it's an interesting shot. I just think I'd like to see it a little bit more like the old Windows XP default wallpaper with a scene like that on there. Of the others, I've commented in the past about the plane. I think it's a wonderful shot, that, a nice black and white conversion. And apparently it says Qatar underneath it as well. So we can even see what it is with there. So those were Peter's top 10. Thank you for sharing that with us on there. Anybody else, if you've got your top 10 from last year, do let me know. Send them to me, feedback@ians-studio.co.uk. Best way to send them is through WeTransfer, and I'll happily take a look at yours next week. Right, let's go over to Facebook. Three people posted their top images from the year, and let's have a look at those, as that's our theme. This was by David Meller, and this is where I realise I've forgotten my notes. They are in my bag somewhere. I'll pick them up later. I think he said it's Fountains Abbey on there, and one of the main things he liked was the arc of the tree going into the thing, into the arch on that. Yeah, nice shot. Just a couple of things, David. I know you use Lightroom or Photoshop. I think it's Lightroom that you use. I would just watch this edge here. So let me go into the develop module with it and do an auto upright, just to do that. Vertical. Yeah, vertical is a little bit better. I'm using my presets there because it's just a bit quicker going through the menus. Now, it's slightly dark on the building, so we can just bring the shadows up a bit, maybe a touch on the exposure. Now, that tends to blow out the sky a bit, but we can counteract that by coming down on there. Maybe that's a bit too much on the shadows on there. So I go something like that. I'm not so keen on this wall at the bottom here. It's not doing anything for me. So I'd be tempted just to lose that from the shot and go with something like that. I don't know whether you considered black and white at all with it. I don't know whether how it will look in black and white. It's possible. No, I'm not sure with black and white on that one. So there we go with that. The next one. This was from John and John Kiss, and it was one of his bug shots. And I've got to agree, fantastic shot. Depth of field is shallow, but because of where it is, it's on the eyes, on the proboscis. You've got the hairs on the face on there, all in sharp focus. It really works well on that. I don't know whether you've cropped in on there or not with it. You've got the eye on the 1/3 mark on there, so that's all good. I would just be tempted just to clean up that little spot there, which is drawing my eye. And that's about all I do on that, other than to say you've got a great shot there, and thank you for sharing it. Phil, now, this is interesting. Phil posted this to the Facebook group, and this is where I'm seeing a big difference between my monitor here and my monitor at home, although they have both been calibrated, which is strange. I think it's largely because I've got studio lights on for the video lights on here. Everything's looking very muted on this. My initial reaction with any shot like this would be to bring the vibrance up, if not the saturation, and to make it a bit more contrasty. So that's my gut reaction with this sort of shot. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if we go back to Phil's original, I think there's something lovely and subtle about the contrast in it, the way he's got it, and that slightly muted look. And he's called it the Guardian of the Dawn of that. And I think it's just a lovely shot. He's got the image perfectly on the 1/3 lines. The horizon is a 1/3 line. Because it's been created with a wide angle. Let's have a look at the shooting data, which I haven't got, of course, because it's a Facebook one. Thinking about it, but it looks like he's done it with a wide angle lens. So you've got this lines coming in from the clouds. It's ticking all the boxes there, and the lovely rays of sun on there. If I said Teletubbies, would that be offensive, Phil? I don't know, but it just has that lovely feel to it. I think it's a fantastic shot, and thank you for sharing it with the group. So that's it for the top 10 images, or the top images there. So let's head over to the let me have a look at the live chat and see what's been going on in there while I've been talking. And it looks like things have been happening. Yeah. Linda's Farm. David corrected me on there, was his. Yeah, Gary was suggesting that the cows would look great in black and white. Yeah, good suggestion on there. And yeah, as others have said, they are great shots you've got there, Peter. Well done, and thank you for sharing. Right, okay, so no questions other than that in there. Right, coming up now is, let's have a look at the other topic that's been going in the Facebook group this week, which is snow shots and snowscapes. So just give me a moment to bring that up and get that set in Lightroom. I can then go over there. Right, these are, some of them have come from the bingo challenge that's been ongoing. Some of them are just general images that have been posted. Let's just go through them. Right, here we are. This was from the bingo challenge. It's one of David Mellor's. Now, David said that it's the snow on a cushion in the garden, the last remnants of it. Now, the thing about this, David, is have a look at the histogram and look where that line is. Now, I'm going to be releasing a video on Friday, and I'm going to be talking about this in Sunday's show, about the problems of photographing snow. The problem is the camera will underexpose with it, anything between 1.5 to 2 stops. So I'm going to bring this up by 2 stops. There we go, 2 stops on there. And we can see how that's now white. And notice what's happened with the histogram. It's moved over into the white area. So it was underexposed. You needed to use exposure compensation for that to counteract it. In post-production, there's a couple of other things you could do with this. And one is just to play a little bit, not so much with the contrast. Can you see what the contrast is just moving the histogram a bit? What we need to do is play really with texture and clarity on here. So if I bring the texture slider up, can you see how we're now starting to see the crystals in the snow on there, and a little bit more with the clarity as well? That allows that to stand out in there. Before and after, that was the original edit, that's mine. So those are the sort of things that I would do with that shot, David. Gary submitted a number of snow scenes, and this is where I haven't got the notes, so I can't tell you where they were. I did note it all down. You can see how Gary has adjusted this. So we've got a good range of brightness. So if we look at the histogram, everything's right up against the white side without it being overexposed on there. And we just get down on the blacks there. I think we could probably afford just to bring the blacks down maybe just a tad, but not much on there to make that one work with it. It's really nice. The only thing I don't like is these plants coming out of the margin right at the bottom. So I would have been tempted just to try and paint those out like that. Just to lose them, and that sort of thing would just tidy that image up a little bit more. And if you could do the same on these, that would help the image as well on that. But other than that, really nice shot, Gary. Again, similar with this one, nice shot, ticks all the same boxes as before. Nice composition, square crop, nice to see a square crop in use. We've got the tree on the 1/3 line with it. Maybe, perhaps just a little bit more foreground. I don't know with that. But if we did, it feels there's a lot of white sky at the top on it. But I do like the square crop on there. But maybe just tilt the camera down very slightly for it on that. Nice lead-in lines from the tracks. Again, ticks all the same boxes, nicely processed as well with the others, Gary. Now, this one. This, I think, is an opportunity missed. A little bit later on, I've got one image to show, which is a deliberate camera blur. I think this would have been an ideal setting for it, where if you do a long exposure, tilt the camera up, move it down, click as you move through, and just get that vertical blur of all these trees. I think you'd get a really, really interesting shot there. So something worth thinking about for the future. Janice, thank you for submitting this. Again, Janice has got the exposure right on here. It might just take half a stop, 1/3 of a stop, I think, on it with the whites, but certainly not much more than that. You clearly either sorted it in post-production or you've used the exposure compensation to get the snow looking white on there. So well done. I like, often I advise against having fences in photos because they act as, whereas you've got lead-in lines that lead you into an image, a fence or a wall going across acts as a barrier to the viewer. With this one, I think it works though because the gates are open and it's inviting the viewer into your scene. It's nicely framed with the trees on both sides. So I think this is a really nice shot, Janice. I just want to say thank you for sharing it with the group on there. Now, Paul submitted this one. It's one of his wife's photos. She spotted the sheep. I would just say it possibly needs a little bit of dehaze on it, just to bring out the detail of the sheep in there. Maybe a little bit of texture on that. And again, just a little bit of exposure compensation. And I would go with something like that with it. They're just minor tweaks, Paul. I think it's been well spotted. The framing of the tree round it works nicely. And if you do use it as a Christmas card this year, then it will be a great shot. And it conjures up images of the shepherds going to visit Jesus. So, yeah, nice shot. Another one from Phil, his snow image. I don't think this is quite as strong as the previous image that you shared. And I think the thing that bothers me a little bit is the tree being central. I think I'd like to see it a little bit more over to one side. And what I would be tempted to do would be, I don't think this bit is really adding that much to the scene. I would be tempted to have started my image there. Ooh, square crop, that might work. Something like that, I think is quite a strong one. But if I was going to do the rectangular crop, I would do it with the extra space on this side for it, because that's where we want to see that scene that's out in front of us. But that square crop, I like that square crop. Let me just fix it as square. Yeah, that's nice. I think a square crop, Phil, you need a square crop with it on that one. Robin, this one I wanted to talk about because I think this is a wonderful snow shot. She did it as part of the bingo challenge, and these balls, these glass balls, I've seen images with them, and part of me wants to have a go with them. Part of me wants to keep away from them. A little bit of a funny story. Some of you may know, but in the early 80s, early to mid 80s, I worked for a short while for the Met Office, and I was trained as in meteorology. And one of the things we were trained was how they did hours of sunshine. And the way they do them, they have these devices where the light goes through a glass ball identical to these, and it burns a path on a bit of card, and you can measure how much of that card is burnt to work out how many hours of sunshine that you've had. The problem is, at the weather stations, these things kept getting nicked by fortune tellers, and I guess photographers these days. So I tend to, every time I see one, I think of my time at the Met Office, where the problem was they kept these were tools of the trade, but they kept getting stolen from our weather stations. Anyway, that's an aside. Let's go on to the image. The image within the ball is always inverted, and quite often people invert the whole image. But this one works because it's not inverted. We've got the base of the snow that it's sitting on, but because we've got a reflection here, or rather we've got a reflection here, it looks as though the image is actually the right way up in the ball. Not only that, but the rock that the ball's sitting on and the snow looks like the sky and the mountain behind, and it plays with the mind and really works and draws you into the image. So I think it's a really clever shot, well thought through and well put together, Robin. Whoops. So I think that's all the snow ones. So let's go have a look at the chat and see what's been going on in there while I've been looking at this. So what have we got? Right, a few things. Oh, Phil saying Teletubby is not offensive at all. Right, Richard saying reasonably spec laptop, Lightroom's almost unusable, so slow, always locking up. Anything that I can recommend? Right, okay. I will deal with that. I will probably do that as a special Sunday night at some point on there. What I'd like you to do, Richard, is let me have a bit more information about your machine. Whether you've got a graphics processor in there, how much memory you've got, how many CPU threads you've got, how many images exactly in your catalogue, and things like that. And I'll do a Sunday night in a couple of weeks' time on really trying to sort out performance issues with Lightroom. It does have a lot of performance issues, and I think there are some things you can do to work around it. So I'll spend a session on that. Just let me have a bit more information and we'll do that. Right, okay. Oh, right, a question from Gary about how long for the exposure for the intentional camera blur is I would go with something like a 20th of a second to start with, and I'd be doing a movement like that, so that 20th of a second is mid-movement. So I start moving, hit the shutter release, and let it finish as I'm moving on that. You can try it out on anything that's got lots of vertical lines to see if it works. And we'll come on to an image later about that. I'll talk a bit more about it then on it. So right. Right, moving on here. Yeah, I'm going to just take a 2-minute break at this point, and I'm just going to premiere a Lightroom video. Now, you've heard me, as we've been going through so far, a few times doing before and after, showing that. This is a little 2-minute tip all about that before and after, and a few extra things you might not know it could do. Hello, welcome to another 2-minute tip. In this tip, I'm going to look at the before and after options within the develop module of Lightroom. And I'll show you a few things you probably didn't know it could do. Hello, welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian Butterfield. In a previous video cast, I showed you the editing on this particular image. Now I want to just go through some of the functions of the before and after so we can see the difference between how the image was before editing and afterwards. To see a before and after image, we hit the slash key. That's the top left to bottom right key. And that will toggle between, by default, the image when you imported it and the current state that you have highlighted in the history. So I'm right at the top here on my latest step, so I'm toggling between effectively the import here and the current state. Now, it might not be the import state that I want to compare against, so it's easy to change the state in the history that I want to look at. And the way we do that is we look down our history, and I might decide that the one I want to check about is the image before I started playing with the graduated filters. So I can right click on the step that says Vibrance, and I have the option to copy history step to before. So I do that. Now, when I hit the slash key, we toggle not between the imported state and the current state, but the current state and the one that's labelled up as vibrance. So just to recap on there, the shortcut key for before and after is the slash key, top left and bottom right, and you can go down the history, right click on a particular stage and set that as the before for the before and after display. I hope you found those 2 tips useful. I'll see you in the next 2-minute tip. Right, okay, we're back. Hope you, again, I'm going to try and do that each week with the midweek ones. Throw in a 2-minute tip in the middle. It just gives me a little breather, so I've got a chance to have a drink as we're going through, and also allows me to do those a little bit slicker, just concentrate on one particular point at a time. Right, okay, let's move on. The next section I want to look at are the images that people have been posting as part of my bingo challenge. So I think most of you who are on here know what the bingo challenge is. If not, go and have a look at my Facebook group and you'll find out what's been going on there. So I should have lined this all up while we were playing the video. Never mind, let's get over to the bingo images. So there we go. Right, I've got a lot of images in here. So yeah, 34 images in this set. So I'm going to go through them very quickly on this. There'll be 1 or 2 I'll stop on and talk a little bit more about. So let's see. Here from Adam, he submitted this one as an S shape, the S shape path going through there. Really nice shot. Great, Adam, that you've corrected all the verticals on there. Lovely photo. Nice. I like the muted tones on there with it as well. All the colours work really nicely on that. Amanda, thank you for taking part in the challenge. And this was her go at parallel lines, and it's an image that's basically carpet samples one on top of another to create the parallel lines, which I quite like the idea with this. The thing I would like to see with it, I think it's a little bit underexposed, so I would be tempted to just brighten it up a little bit. We notice now where the histogram is, it's come into the brighter side, but as with the others, I would like to see a little bit more texture into it and a little bit more clarity, and I think something like that. Could we add vibrance to it? I'm not sure we need to be honest on that, so that would be what I would do on there. Andy, a nice smoke shot. Don't know how you created the smoke on this one. I suspect it's a joss stick or something hidden behind the model house on there. Again, colours work nicely on that. Not a lot else to say. Anthony, right, this one, which is a present Anthony bought for his wife, Rebecca, and therefore this was on the theme of love. The one thing I would say about this is try and give it a little bit more breathing space on there. So instead of having it right up against the edges on there, and also I'd like to see it more, perhaps a little bit more towards straight on. I'd like to see what that looked like, or at least if you can't do it straight on, maybe correct it in post-production. So if I do this, so I mean it's going to be a little bit tricky to do it, but you'd end up with something like that, and then of course I'm not going to be able to get the whole thing in with it, but we can still see the sides and it still looks sort of straight on with it. I could play around a little bit more with that about keeping those edges straight as well, and just sorting it out that way. Maybe if I did it guided. We are going to lose the edges of this, there's no way around it, but we'd want that as horizontal and we'd want that as horizontal. So you'd end up with something like that, and just imagine the bits which are missing off the off this, which is basically this corner at the bottom. But I'd like to see it looking a bit more like that on there. Next, Bernard, nice shot of a bit of public artwork. You've got a little bit of pavement down at the bottom in here. I'd like to see a little bit more. Let me go full screen so people can see this a little bit better. I'd like to see a bit more of the pavement to give this context in there so that we can see where it is. I think it must be a building shutter, something like that on it. And I think it's one that can take just a little bit more contrast with it, which helps bring out the colours a little bit more on that. Again, another one from Bernard, teddy bear wearing specs. I really like that. I'd just like to see a bit more of the table, get the full sweep of the arc on it, if it's going to be in, or none of the arc with it. So I'd bring it in just a little bit more like that, and then try and lose those. So that would be with that. Again, the third one from Bernard, really like this one. It's nicely set up with the Snakes and Ladders tin, the dice and all the counters on there with it. A nice angle that you don't see anything other than the tin or the box and the board and everything that goes with it. So nicely put together. On my screen, I like to see it a bit brighter. That's getting to become a running theme, isn't it? Now, this was interesting from Bob. He focus stacked this. And if you want to know about focus stacking, I've got a couple of tutorials on the YouTube channel about how to do that. Released one fairly recently. Just be a little bit careful, because you can see some of the blacks are plugged up here, which just is a little bit of a problem. Now, because this is the Facebook version of it, I can't do much about it, but we could either just bring that up a fraction, maybe not on the exposure, then bring it up with using the black slider, and the whites, again, those are a little bit burnt out as well, so we can bring those down. Maybe, no, I've not been able to do it. I suspect with the raw files you could have done that, but just watch that with that. But it's a nice composition the way it's set up. Another sweets one, this one's from Carol. Now, this is interesting. Now, with something like this, Carol, it's difficult to tell whether you've got the critical focus on it, because it's a Facebook one, it's a low resolution image. I don't know where you focus, but I would focus on this blue sweet, probably, with this. And I would also, when doing shots like this, I know this isn't going to work particularly well with it being such low resolution, but I would tend to try and come in and let all the sweets go out of the edge. And it needs to be in a bit further on that side. So you end up with something like that. But if you've got a few more sweets to make that work, I think that's a better shot than trying to see the edges of the little pile of sweets on there. Another one from Carol, mostly red. I actually do quite like that little bit of green in there with it. So again, nicely. If you are editing in something like Lightroom or Snapseed, then you could use a texture slider to help bring out the texture in that with it. David, this one of the coin, the hands one, which did two versions of it, and again, I went all the trouble of putting all the settings in my my notes, which I don't have with me. Right. I know you said you had to bring out the texture in post-production. I don't know whether you used Lightroom's texture slider, which is really good at doing that. But one way you could have done it in camera is to actually make sure the light is really in a line with it. Now, looking at the shadow here, you've got the light fairly high up and shining down. If you brought it down, so if that's the coin there, I think your light was coming in at this sort of angle on it. If you brought the light down more to here and brought it in, you'd have got more, you've got a bigger shadow down here, but these shadows on the hands would have been larger and you'd have seen the texture better. I do like the idea of trying it with the UV light, and again, I think it's harder with that because I suspect it's I don't know what sort of light it is, but it seems not to cast as much shadow with it. Mind you, if I did the texture slider and the clarity slider, I'm not even going to try the dehaze slider. You could do something like that with it. And a bit of contrast as well would help bring it out. But then I think yeah, it's a tricky one with it. I think I prefer the original, to be honest. So moving on. The TARDIS mug, right. Again, I know you use Lightroom, so I would use that to correct the verticals. Oh, we're going to have to do it guided. We go down on there, and the edge of the mug there. That straightens it all up. Crop. And crop. I would try to get obviously we've lost the edge of the handle with that, and you'd really want to do that. I'd try and get the base of the mug in there. It looks like you've got a nice setting for it, a little bit of set dressing in the background, but I think just that, getting that angle, coming down a little bit lower perhaps, or correcting it in post-production. Also, notice it's underexposed. Look at the histogram here. We've got this area here that's not doing anything. We've got whites which aren't white. So basic exposure, and just to bring that up. So yeah, just a stop and a third would be what that one required. So how are we doing? Another one of David's. Again, this one is a nice concept. Shame we've got the light coming through there. The paper could have been done with going down a little bit more just to get the true silhouette on there. And having got it into Lightroom or Photoshop, this is where bring the exposure and the contrast up, and then use the blacks slider to get the to emphasize the silhouette. Maybe even bring the highlights and the whites up and those shadows down, that sort of thing. Let's just assume that gap at the bottom didn't exist. So yeah, we've got that. I know you did it with a torch shining through on there, but I would go with something like that. Maybe even use tone curve to do it. Now I'm going to go with point curve on here, which they changed this, and I can't remember how we do it to get the point. That's the point curve now, and maybe bring that down. Ooh, bring that in. You can actually just play around and get that true silhouette. We've got the burnt bit at the bottom because of the light not going all the way down there, but that sort of thing is possible with it. I'd need to spend a bit more time on that to clean it up properly. This was the one I was talking about earlier with the deliberate camera movement. And you can see how the effects of the trees on there. I would think for this one, it needs just a slightly faster, a slightly slower shutter speed. I would like to see it blurred a little bit more on there, but nice shot, nice idea with that. And maybe just a little bit of a tweak along those lines. Actually, no, I'm not going to do the contrast on there. Not even the clarity, actually. That works nicely as it is. So, yeah, but just slightly faster shutter speed. Another one from John's. John commented that he hadn't noticed the reflections beforehand. One of the reasons for that is the angle you're normally looking at. You've gone right down to floor level on this, and that's why you're now seeing the reflections with it. I don't like the line going across there. I think that's the threshold. So I'd be tempted to do that just to avoid it on there. Another nice one. Rule of thirds, yeah, sort of. You've got a third line, and a third line across there. I wasn't going to quibble over it, but normally I would have said that's a centered image because that's the where it is. But interesting shot on there. Laura's shot works nicely. The cat, well exposed actually on there, on the cat itself, because we don't really need to know much about the background. This I like. I like the watercolor effect on it that we've got with the rain on the windscreen of a car with it. The only thing I don't like is this line across the bottom. So I would be tempted to try and do that with it to avoid that. The other thing I would say with it, I know it's an opportunistic shot. I think you did this early in the morning. I'd have waited slightly longer for that magic blue hour time. At sunset, it's 20 minutes after the official sunset time and lasts for about 20 minutes. With sunrise, it's the 20 minutes leading up to 20 minutes before the official sunrise time. So 40 minutes before sunrise time lasts for about 20 minutes, and you would get the blue sky to go with it. So that would have been a slightly better time for it. But no, it works fine. You might want to consider also correcting the verticals on there. I've got it on there. Right. Transform upright. You'd end up with something looking, maybe not looking like that. I haven't got that right, have I? I hit level rather than vertical. The vertical would be something like that, and we constrain to crop. You get something looking like that with it. Like the idea of the light through a CD to create an image on here. Consider making this a bit more of a bit tighter in on that part of it, so there's more of the rainbow on it, maybe something like that. I don't know. Move on. This I like. Your blacks are a little bit plugged up, and you can see how we've got a lot of detail there. That some of that will be due to Facebook. Other parts it's because it really is a little bit underexposed. Now I think it's probably a phone shot. I don't know whether you've got access to an app or whether the app that you're using on your phone gives you exposure compensation. I think your Android from memory. I think some of the Android ones do. If your iPhone, something like Camera Plus will allow you to do exposure compensation, which would allow you to bring this up to get that detail. I can't recover it. There's nothing there to recover, unfortunately, but it would be nice to see the exposure of the hair right. This, I believe, is a poinsettia by Linda Freakley on there. Personally, I'd like to see a bit more vibrance to it. I think the thing about poinsettias is they're lovely and red, and it's a shame we've lost that. Now, unfortunately, we're getting colours in there, so that's not the way to do it. The way to do it in Lightroom is to use something like the HSL tab, and we do the saturation predominantly on the reds then to bring it up, and maybe just a little bit of lightening on it to give that little bit more poinsettia feel of it. So by doing that, we've not affected the greens quite so much on there. Going through these is a bit of a pace because I'm aware of the time. We've been going for an hour already. Linda was saying she wanted this a bit more whiter, wasn't quite so happy about the whites on here. It has got a little bit of a blue cast to it. Now, if you're going into Lightroom with this, the easy solution is to use the dropper tool here, pick a white, and I would actually go with one that's in a mid-grey. You can see there's a blue cast on there very easily. If you look at the values, 67.5, 70.5, 83.9, blue's a lot higher. So we need to balance that out. Just click on there. That gives you the whites that you're looking for. Now that's almost a little bit overexposed. I would just bring it back a bit. I think that might be what you were looking for, although it's looking a bit green there. I tend to play around sometimes, try a couple of places. Is that better? I think that's better on the whites. I prefer that, slightly warmer with it. So that's what I would go for. Before and after, that magic key we showed before, it's the blue. We're just correcting it that way on there. Next, let's see how many more have I got on here. Oh, I'm over halfway now. Good. There's lots here. I've just got to share this one. A nice bit of lateral thinking, no pun intended, for Neil Sumner's parallel lines on the bingo challenge. Neil, again, as I've said with the others, exposure compensation, bring your snow up to being white on there. You've managed to white balance it correctly, but we just need the exposure adjusting on that. Again, this one's a little bit underexposed as well. I would bring it up and bring up the contrast, fraction, and clarity. No, not that much. Vibrance, I think, on it. I don't know. Yeah, I would do something like that with it. Now, I just want to talk about this one. This is one Peter submitted, and I basically told him it's not good enough. That's because I've got a lot of confidence that Peter can do better than just taking a photograph of half a CD cover for the topic of dancing. And with a little bit of encouragement, this is what he then came up with on there, which is a much better shot. It tells the story better. It's the music CD for dancing and waltzes and all that. So much prefer that, Peter. One thing I would watch is this bright edge round here. Now, I don't like clipping the edge of the disc, but can you see how that brightness now doesn't draw you to the edge of the image on there? So moving on. Another one from Peter, the gravy boat. This is underexposed, and it's one time where I would just set the white balance and I would just bring the exposure up to, I think it belongs about there on that. Other thing I would say for this, Peter, it's a really lovely concept, but I would turn the Bisto thing round so that we can see the word Bisto a little bit clearer rather than the nutritional value. I'd just turn it around a little bit on there. And with that, nice one from Peter here, his Stormtrooper snow scene, and a bit of white material, white gauze on there. Richard, now this is a strange one. I'm not quite sure what it is he's photographed here. I quite like the magenta colour on there, but there's something weird with it as well. And I think that maybe is what I like on it. Works nicely, it's a nice abstract image, well done. This one, Richard, I know the timing of when you were passing and all that, but the sunset shot, 20 minutes after official sunset time, lasts for 20 minutes, my usual mantra on there. The shadows could do with lifting a little bit, maybe the exposure is a little bit noisy, but just bringing that up a bit and then bringing the highlights back down to preserve them, maybe a bit too far, something like that. May need a little bit of noise reduction in the background there. Let's have a look before, after, just that little bit of a rise with it, I think. Need that much. Yeah, just a tad on there, and then noise reduction. If you've got my presets, then let's do it the quick way, and I think, yep, that one would give us the noise reduction that we're looking for it. So we can see we've got a lot less. It's not completely removed it, but it's got rid of most of it on there. Again, nice concept on here. But as ever, if we look at the histogram, we can afford to increase the exposure on there, and that brings the colours out a little bit more. So about a stop up on that one. Oops, sorry, I spelt your name wrong on there. Just realised, my apologies for that. Robin doing the game one. Again, nice idea, and I'm glad you've got the hands in there as part of the game. I'd be tempted to square this off, but that's me, or just maybe take it a little bit more of a, it's not so much as an angle, but I'm trying to illustrate it by doing a hand movement there. I can't. So more coming in from this side of it, and then perhaps tilt that round so the letters are still parallel to the frame on there. I'd go with something like that on there. I'd experiment with the angles on it a little bit more. Right. My time is running out, and this is... Have I actually got to the end? It's not coming up with another one. Well, hey, I have. Yes, well done. Well done, me. What's been going on in chat while I've been looking at this? Let's have a look. Right, a question from Phil, wondering whether I bought any good photography books in the past year. No, I haven't. I don't tend to do that much on there. David Meller saying he hasn't got the texture slider. And it looks like I'm getting an error, YouTube not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So I don't know whether that's a problem or not on there for people. We'll carry on. I've still got 8 viewers left on it. So right, let's move on. What have we got? Come on. Right, I've not got much time. There are a couple of Facebook photos I want to look at. So I'm going to go over and set that up. I won't be able to go through all of these because of time. There's a few I just want to pick up on here that are worthy of comment. So, right, here we go. New member to the group, just joined today, submitted a photo which I want to give some feedback on. So Aruna, hope you're watching this perhaps on the replay. So if I go into here, right, it's very low resolution image. If you're able to put a higher resolution versions of your images up, that would help to see what's going on. Watch your horizons, they're not quite straight on here. So we straighten that up a little bit, that would help. The other thing is I know you submitted a number of images with this different darknesses of the face, and on some of them, I'm going to just simulate it on here. The face was in, can't do it on that one, do it on the shadow slide, was almost like that, where you could just see that amount of it. And for me, that doesn't work. I much prefer what we've got here to be able to see the detail of the face, but the crop is weird going through just below the lip. The normal places for cropping would normally be just a little bit below below the neck. Try not to cut through the neck. If you are going to go through the below the mouth, it's just at the very tip of the chin on there, not just at the bottom of the lips on there. So I would do that. And I would also try and find an angle with your subject here. Perhaps ask them just to stand up a little bit more so that they form the frame without this weird shape sticking out of their heads at in the background on there. Black and white works well. The problem you've got is the dynamic range here. That if you could get her higher up without this line going through the nose, then yes, you could go into silhouette with it, but without that you need the detail on the face with it. It's difficult to say too much more with that. It's just we haven't got much time. I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback on there. Who else am I going to pick on from here? Yeah, oh yes, Ruskins on there. Let's have a look at that. The tree silhouette, quite like this. It's a shame the sun's a little bit blown out there. I'd have liked to have seen this just that little bit later in the day, where the sun's closer to the horizon on there. I think the horizon's not quite straight as well. I think your horizon, I think I had this trouble last time with one of yours, Ruskin. Try and get the horizon right. I would also try and put that on a 1/3 line, so I'd be bringing that in a little bit more to that sort of positioning on there with it. I'm just interested to see what vibrance would do with it. Not sure. I'm going to try a fake sunset on it, which I've got with my so if I went with that, you've got an almost sort of summery sunset kind of look with it, and then maybe bring the exposure back a little bit and we have that more golden look on there. I would be tempted to try that sort of thing. One of the things about sunsets, and I'm going to do a session on one of the Sunday nights fairly soon about sunsets and sunrises and talk about those in a bit more detail. But one thing with them is it plays havoc with your white balance. So always fix your white balance to something like cloudy or shade, or depending on the camera that you've got. If you've got a sunset mode with it, then use that. It prevents the camera taking that the orange out of your shot on there. So what else? Right, I want to talk about this one from John Barton, one of his. It's a Stockport one, since it's my hometown. One thing I would do with this, John, is, as we've said with a number of these, is get your verticals sorted with it. So I'll do it guided on here because I think that's going to be the quickest way. We've got a line down there and a line down there. Ooh, I didn't get that right because I can see the lamppost isn't straight. Let me try and get the lamppost straight down there. Ooh, I'm struggling with this one. I shouldn't be struggling with it. On there, we need to play with that aspect ratio because it's well distorted now. So if we bring that out to there and then we crop it into there, up here, still not convinced I've got those verticals properly, but something like that works. Now, I quite like the lead-in line with it. It's great black and white processing. Let me bring it larger so people can see on there. Yeah, I haven't got the vertical right. I just need to spend a little bit more time getting that one sorted. I'd be tempted, instead of going on this side of the market brew, I'd go on the other side to try and put that light on a 1/3 line somehow. It's a tricky one. Maybe swing the camera a bit further this way so that this isn't going to look quite right. That it's more that side and then a bit more of the building over here. So it's on the 1/3. I like the fact that it's in the gap, would work on there. So I'm trying to avoid getting it in the middle. There's no way to do it. You'd have to do something silly like that to do it, and I can't do it. So escape. There we go. Undo all that. So yeah, I would go with something like that on there. Got to talk about this one from John, just to say such a good image. That is a little waterfall in Abney Park in Cheadle, which normally is just a little trickle, and I hadn't realised what it was. It was a 10-stop ND filter on there that John's used, and just perfect waterfall shot and that lovely candy floss effect. Well done, John, with that. I would never have believed that little waterfall could look quite as spectacular as that. Another one that's worthy of mention is this one of Phil's, which is again, that I think this is a similar sort of view to what we've had before. I love the colours on there, and the fact that this is a stitched pano. Lots and lots of shots gone into producing this. Unfortunately, I've got the Facebook version, so I can't even zoom in to show you all the detail on there, but I know there would be lots. The only thing I would say, Phil, and this is a lot of people here know it's one of my pet hates, is horizons going halfway through an image. I'd try to find some way to get that horizon on the 1/3 line, and I don't. You see, that's not quite buying it, doing it that way, nor is that we're losing too much. I think it's one of those where, and this may not even be possible because of the of where you were, is I'd like to see a little bit more of the foreground so that that horizon's a little bit lower down, so that we keep all that sky but have a bit more foreground with it. But it's still a lovely shot on there, and that's really nitpicking, I'm afraid, on there. I just think that, yeah, it's just a pet hate of mine, horizons through the middle. What have we got left in here that we can talk about? Fiery Dawn. Let's have a look at this one. It's part of the challenge, actually. I think I should have done it on there, but yeah, just watch your verticals on here. I think if you are going to go quirky angle with it, with a shot, I don't think this is the right shot to do it with, the right subject. I think that is much better for it, and I don't know what you use for edit. If you've got, if you're doing it on the phone, look at a product called Snapseed, which will allow you to add, they call it structure on there, just to bring that up. I think you've obviously done some editing on it, and maybe a bit sort of more contrasty with that. Always worth trying to get some nice deep blacks in an image. So in terms of the processing side, That's the difference between the two on there. Right, I think that's all I've got time. Oh, no, 2 more. I've got to do some of Donata's. So this one, I love the concept of this Donata. Lovely black and white. It's just a shame it appears as though it's either camera shake or not quite in focus on the writing on his back. And I think that's the key thing with this. That needs to be in sharp focus on there, which is a crying shame, actually. This one, however, I love. You've got just enough of the detail in these dark areas. You've got this nice area around there. Just be a little bit careful about the halo effect in the doorway with the processing on it. And I know that can be tricky, and you've done it as an HDR, I guess, to do that, or you've really pushed the processing on it. But just watch that halo round there. That can be fixed in Photoshop, but it does, to my mind, kind of spoil it. If you can clean that up or find a way to avoid it, that would help, I think, with that shot. Unless it was genuinely on the door like that. This one, I like as a shot. There's a couple of things just to be aware of. Chromatic aberration. We had a we had a look at this the other week on one of the Sunday nights. Let's just go down and I'll actually do the chromatic aberration on there. It's the detail on it. No, it's not detail, it's lens corrections. Where am I going? If I put in remove chromatic aberration, look at the pink and the cyan on there. That's got rid of it to a certain extent. The profile corrections, it won't do because it doesn't know what the lens is, and nor do I. So I have to go to manual. At this point, if I'm trying to get rid of the purple one, so with the purple one, I just bring it up until that goes, and then the green cyan is this edge, and I can bring that up until it goes. Now I can move that to try and find the area that I need, and similarly with that as well to fine tune it. So that's got rid of it. Before and after, the slash key, before, after, and you see that purple coming and going. So just be careful for that. I'm not a big fan of white vignettes unless it's being done as very much as a period piece. And this clearly isn't, because we've got modern technology and modern style clothing in the shot. So I think a darker vignette, if anything, would have been the better one on there. And I think that's all I've got time for on there. So let's head back over to the chat and see what we've got in there before I finish. Still got that error on there. Yeah, nothing new in there. So that's that. And let me just move on and finish. Let me just wrap up on this. Thank you everyone for submitting images and allowing me to talk about them. Next week shouldn't be quite as long because I had 10 days worth to go through this time on there. I want to thank everyone for watching and sticking with it. I know a couple of people have had to drop out. If you are new to this, do make sure you subscribe, you comment, and you hit the like button. If you found it helpful and you want to contribute, there's my link for the Buy Me a Cuppa campaign. You can find the link down below on there. On Sunday evening, I will be back at 7:30 with a tutorial all about snowscapes, and I'll look at any more snowscapes and any additional images which have been submitted between now and next Wednesday. On Wednesday, your feedback, the feedback session then, and we'll see how they go. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, thanks for watching and keep making great photos. Bye for now.